Welcome back to the Asset Move Laboratory. If you are tuning in, it is because you are, well, you're done with the comforting illusions of modern finance.
Right.
You want the raw truth, however uncomfortable it might be. We call this getting red-flavored.
And we mean that.
We are stripping down the machinery of the economy to see how it actually works, not how the textbooks or, the cable news pundits tell you it works.
That is right. We are not here to recite definitions or give you hot stock tips. We are here to look at the engine room of civilization. And today, we are looking at the 19th Guardian in the Bitcoin 21 Guardians series.
It's heavy hitter.
Very heavy hitter. A man who essentially walked into the Cathedral of Economics, looked at the high priests, and told them their god was dead. We're talking about Carl Menger.
Carl Menger, the man who started it all for the Austrian school. Now, before we get into the heavy theory, I wanted to set the scene because context is everything. We need to transport ourselves to Vienna, late 19th century, 1871.
It's a fascinating time and place. I mean, the Habsburg Empire is fading, the political structures they're rotting, but the intellect.
The intellect.
It is burning hot. You have this grand furnace of clashing minds in the coffee houses.
Right. You've got the Ringstrasse architecture going up outside these massive buildings trying to replicate the glories of Rome and Greece, looking all imperial and solid. But inside
the coffee houses, a quiet revolution is brewing.
And in walks this 31-year-old journalist, Carl Menger, and he drops a book called Principles of Economics. And from what I understand, this wasn't just a book. This was a demolition job.
It was a total demolition of the classical economists. I mean, we were talking about the giants, Adam Smith, David Ricardo. Menger took aim at them and said, you have the basic physics of value completely wrong.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately, because this is the Copernican shifts everyone talks about.
Yeah.
Before Menger, the standard view, and honestly the view most people still have intuitively today, was that value is objective.
Yeah, that's right. Like, if I spend 10 hours building a table, that table has value because of my labor. Or it has value because of the cost of the wood and the nails. It just feels logical. I worked hard, therefore it is valuable.
It feels logical, but it is a trap. Menger looked at that and said it is absolute nonsense. And he didn't come to this conclusion sitting in an ivory tower. He saw it as a journalist covering the markets.
Okay.
He saw that you could spend 1,000 hours building a machine, but if nobody wants that machine, its value is zero.
So labor does not equal value.
Not at all. Right. Not even close. Menger realized that value isn't a property of the object, like weight or color. Value exists only in the mind of the individual. It is strictly a relationship between a human need and a good available to satisfy that need.
This is a bit abstract, though. Help me visualize this. How did he explain this to people who believed labor was everything?
Well, a classic illustration is the diamond water paradox. This stumped economists for centuries.
Right. Think about it. Water is essential for life. You die without it. Diamonds are just shiny rocks. They are, for the most part, useless for survival. So why is a diamond worth so much more than a gallon of water?
Well, because diamonds are rare. Scarcity, right?
That is part of it, but not the whole story. Menger shifted the context. Imagine you are lost in the desert. You haven't had a drink in 2 days.
Okay.
You are stumbling through the sand, and someone offers you a choice. A flawless 1-carat diamond or a gallon of water. Which one has more value to you? Right there, right then.
The water, I wouldn't even look at the diamond.
Exactly. The intrinsic properties of the water haven't changed. The labor to get the water hasn't changed, but the value has flipped completely. Why?
Because my needs changed.
Because value is subjective. It depends entirely on the specific individual at a specific moment, satisfying a specific need.
So there's no price tag woven into the fabric of the universe. It is all in our heads.
It is entirely subjective. And that sounds simple now. But in 1871, this was heresy. It shifted the power from the object to the subject, the individual. And this is the core of the subjectivist revolution. Once you understand that value is subjective, you start to see that the entire economy isn't a machine run from the top down. It is an organic outcome of millions of individual choices.
And naturally, the establishment didn't like being told they were irrelevant. This leads us to one of the great dramas in economic history, something the source material calls the Methodist Strait. The Battle of Methods.
The Battle of Methods.
Now, that sounds like a boring academic conference where people throw chalk at each other. But the sources say this was a war for the soul of economics. Was it really that serious?
Oh, it was incredibly serious. You have to understand the opponent. Menger was fighting the German historical school, led by a man named Gustav von Schmoller.
Schmoller.
And these guys were the intellectual bodyguards of the Prussian state.
The intellectual bodyguards. I like that. What did they believe?
Schmoller and the Prussians believed that there were no universal economic laws. They thought economics was just about describing history. They believed the unit of analysis was the state, or the collective.
Wow.
Basically, they thought the government could just decree whatever it wanted and the economy would obey because there were no underlying laws of human action to stop them.
So Schmoller is saying the state is God and we just chronicle its glory. And Menger steps up and says...
Menger says, no, economics is an exact science. He argued for something called methodological individualism. He said you cannot understand the state or the economy or society unless you understand the individual acting to improve their own situation. The state doesn't act, only people act.
That is a dangerous idea if you are a Prussian autocrat trying to control a population.
It is lethal to authoritarianism. If there are universal laws of economics like supply and demand or marginal utility, then the king is subject to them, just like the peasant. The king can't just print money or fix prices without consequences. Menger was effectively telling the state, you are not all-powerful, you are bound by the laws of human action.
I can see why Schmoller hated him.
Hated him so much he tried to cancel him. Here is a great piece of trivia. Schmoller coined the term Austrian school as an insult.
No way.
He wanted to imply that Menger and his students were just provincial outsiders, not serious Prussian academics from Berlin.
He tried to use Austrian as a slur.
He did. But Menger, being Menger, embraced it. He wore it like a badge of honor. And thank goodness he did, because that distinction between the state-focused view and the individual-focused view is what brings us to the most explosive topic of this deep dive.
All right.
We have to talk about money.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is where the red flavor really kicks in. We grow up with this schoolhouse rock version of history.
Right.
The government invents money. The state prints the dollar. The king stamps the coin. It is the law. That is the chartalist view. It seems obvious. I mean, look at your wallet. Every bill has a signature from a government official.
It seems obvious because we live in a world that has been dominated by that view for 100 years. But Menger looked at history and asked a very simple, very dangerous question. Where is the receipt?
The receipt.
The record. Menger said if a king or a state actually invented money from scratch, surely there would be a historical record of that decree, a specific date where our rulers stood up and said, we shall now use gold as a medium of exchange, and before today, we just bartered.
And I'm guessing he didn't find that memo.
It doesn't exist. There is no such record in any civilization.
So if the state didn't invent it, who did? Because it didn't just fall out of the sky.
We did. You, me, our ancestors. Menger argued that money is a spontaneous order. It is an unintended social result of purposeful individual actions.
Okay, like language.
Exactly like language. Did a government committee sit down and decide that the sound apple means the red fruit?
No, people just started grunting at each other until they agreed on sounds so they could communicate.
Exactly. Language evolved because people had a need to communicate. Money is the same. It wasn't a decree, it was a discovery. Menger argued that money is a technology we discovered to help us trade, not a collar put on us by a master.
That is a powerful reframing. It completely delegitimizes the idea that the state owns the money supply. But explain the mechanics. How do a bunch of people trading chickens and shoes suddenly discover gold is money?
He actually corrected Aristotle here. Aristotle thought money was a legal convention. Menger said, no, it is a market process. It starts with barter.
Right.
I have chickens, you have shoes. I want shoes, but you don't want chickens. We are stuck. This is the coincidence of wants problem.
Right, so trade is blocked.
So, what does a smart individual do? This is where Menger introduces the concept of economic intelligence. The smart trader realizes, okay, the shoemaker doesn't want my chickens, but I know the shoemaker always needs salt. So I trade my chickens for salt, not because I want to eat the salt, but because I know I can trade the salt for the shoes.
So the salt becomes a bridge.
Exactly. The salt is more saleable than the chickens. And this brings us to the technical core of Menger's theory. The concept that explains why gold became money and why we are seeing what we are seeing in the crypto markets today.
What's the concept?
The concept of Absatzfähigkeit.
Absatzfähigkeit. That is a mouthful. We translate it as saleability, right? But I want to be careful here. In modern finance, we talk about liquidity all the time. Is this just a fancy 19th century word for liquidity?
It is related, but deeper. Much deeper. Liquidity usually just implies, can I sell this now? Saleability refers to the resistance a good faces when you try to sell it at an economic price. It's a measure of how much value you lose if you try to move the asset.
So it's not just can I sell this, it's can I sell this without taking a huge haircut.
Precisely. Menger broke this down into the physics of money. He identified 3 dimensions of saleability. If you want to understand why an asset becomes money, you have to measure it against these 3 things. The first is saleability across time.
Saleability across time. Does that just mean holding on to it?
It means holding on to it without it rotting or losing worth. Let's use an example. Imagine you try to save your wealth in strawberries. You have $1 million worth of strawberries in a warehouse. You are rich.
For about 3 days. Then I have $1 million of mush.
Exactly. The resistance to selling them in a month is 100%. You lose everything. So strawberries have 0 saleability across time. But gold. You can bury a gold coin, dig it up 100 years later, and it is the same gold.
It resists entropy.
That resistance is what makes it a store of value.
Okay, that makes sense. Durability matters. What's the second dimension?
It's saleability across space. This is transportability. Can I move this value from Vienna to New York without spending half the value on the transport itself?
This is the value to weight ratio.
Right. Think about cattle. In ancient societies, cows were money. But imagine trying to pay someone in another city with cows.
It's a nightmare.
You have to walk them there, feed them. Some might die. The cost of transport eats up the value. Gold is better because a small coin holds a lot of value. You can put it in your pocket and travel.
Okay, so gold beats cows on space. And the third?
Saleability across scale. This is divisibility. Can I chop it up to buy a coffee or merge it to buy a house without losing value?
Diamonds seem like they'd fail here.
Diamonds are terrible at this. If you have a huge diamond worth $1 million and you cut it into 10 pieces, the total value of those pieces is way less than $1 million. You destroyed value by dividing it.
Right.
But if you melt a gold bar into coins, the total weight of gold is the same. The value is preserved.
So the history of money isn't a history of kings choosing coins because they like the shiny metal. It's a history of the market. Millions of people running a constant computation to figure out which item hits the sweet spot of time, space, and scale.
It is a process of selection. The most saleable good wins. It's a viral loop. The smart money moves first, trading chickens for salt or salt for silver. The masses observe this success, they imitate it, and eventually that intermediate good becomes money.
Okay, let's pivot to the present day. We are asset move strategists. We look at the world as it is. But let me play devil's advocate for a second. We live under the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
We use fiat currency. And honestly, it works.
It works.
I can buy coffee, I can pay my taxes, I can send a wire. It seems pretty saleable to me. Why is Menger's theory relevant to the dollar in my pocket? Isn't the government supposed to manage the money supply to keep things stable?
That is the standard view, and it is very comforting. But if we apply Menger's logic, we are looking at a usurpation. That is the only word for it.
A usurpation.
If money is the fruit of selfish choices by the market, a tool for liberty, then a state monopoly on money is an unnatural capture of that power.
But the dollar is money. Everyone accepts it.
But ask yourself why. Does a dollar have saleability by merit? Does it win on the dimensions of time or durability?
Well, no.
No, it has saleability because of legal tender laws. Men with guns, or the threat of prison, say you must accept this for debt and taxes.
So you're saying the dollar didn't win the competition, it just eliminated the competitors.
Precisely. The source material calls this coerced saleability. It is artificial. It suppresses the natural human instinct to choose better money. And look at the dimension of saleability across time.
You mean inflation?
Inflation is the destruction of saleability across time. When a central bank creates unlimited waves of liquidity to solve a political problem, they are eroding the scarcity that makes money. From a Mengerian perspective, they are breaking the tool.
Wow.
They are stealing the time you stored in that money.
That is a chilling way to put it. Stealing time. So if the modern central banking temple is built on this coercion, where do we go? The outline mentions a modern bridge.
Yes.
We have to talk about the asset that claims to be the technical realization of Menger's theory. We have to talk about Bitcoin.
This is where it gets fascinating. If you look at the Bitcoin white paper, Satoshi Nakamoto wasn't just writing code. He was building a digital version of Menger's spontaneous order. He created a decentralized consensus, proving you don't need a king to keep the ledger.
But does it actually pass the Menger test? Let's run Bitcoin through the 3 dimensions. Be critical here.
Let's look at the data. Saleability across space. Bitcoin is weightless. It moves at the speed of light. It has the highest spatial saleability in human history. You can send $1 billion across the globe in 10 minutes for a few bucks.
Gold can't do that.
Gold can't do that. You'd need an armored jet. Saleability across scale. 1 Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshis. It is infinitely scalable. You can do micropayments or sovereign settlements. And saleability across time. This is the big one.
The supply cap.
The hard-coded 21 million supply, it is immutable. No central bank chairman can decide to print more because the economy is slow.
So on paper, it is the apex predator of saleability. But, there's always a huge but here, the volatility.
The volatility.
You hear this every day from traditional finance guys. It can't be money, it swings 20% in a week. If I put my savings in Bitcoin and it drops by half, that is terrible saleability across time.
That fear is natural, I get it. But Menger gives us the lens to understand it. You are judging a teenager for not acting like a grandfather. Menger teaches us that money isn't a switch you flip, it is a progression.
It's growing up.
Exactly. Volatility is not failure, it is evolution. Menger's logic suggests there are stages. First, it's a collectible. People buy it for novelty or censorship resistance.
Then what?
Then it becomes a store of value. That is where we are now. Then, medium of exchange. Finally, unit of account.
So the volatility we see, that's just price discovery.
It is the noise of the market learning the asset's true saleability. We are transitioning from store of value to medium of exchange. You cannot go from zero to global reserve currency without a chaotic discovery phase. It's like a blurry picture coming into focus. The chaos is the focusing process.
That connects to the regression theorem by Ludwig von Mises, Menger's student. Bitcoin didn't start with monetary value. It started as a nerd collectible.
Yes. Its initial value came from its cryptographic novelty and its ability to resist censorship. That gave it the foothold to enter the race. Now, the market is waking up to its superior saleability. The market is realizing, hey, this thing works better than the coerced paper the government is giving me.
It's incredible to think that a guy sitting in a Viennese coffee house in 1871 basically wrote the software update for the global economy that we're trying to install today.
That is the power of the Lindy effect. Menger's theory has a Lindy score of 98%. It has survived 150 years of wars, depressions, and technological shifts. Why? Because it's based on the logic of human action, not on transient statistics or government decrees.
The logic of human action.
As long as humans act to improve their lives, Menger will be relevant.
That's the anchor. So let's wrap this up. We've gone from the Ringstrasse to the blockchain. We've seen that value is in the mind, money is a discovery, and the state's monopoly is a usurpation. What is the one thing the listener needs to take away from Menger?
The takeaway is clear. Monetary sovereignty belongs to the individual. Menger proved that money is a tool for freedom born from our own choices. When you choose what money to hold, you are exercising that sovereignty. You are voting for the system you want to live in.
We promised a strategic conclusion, and we are going to deliver it. Listen closely, because this is the only strategy that matters in a world of fiat decay. In the collapse of the modern central banking temple, Menger's saleability is your only compass. Money is not a gift from the state. It is a fruit of individual liberty. Stop being a victim of design. Start designing your own sovereignty.
Couldn't have said it better.
That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you in the next one. Keep thinking.